Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made using the My Creative Scrapbook September limited edition kit. The kit had lots of goodies in it. It featured the 49 and Market collection called Art Options Vickin, and it's a gorgeous collection. It has so many beautiful shades of blue and purple and green. If you're interested in seeing the whole limited edition kit, I have an unboxing video. I'll put the link for that in the description box. I started off by inking a number of elements from the kit and then also some die cuts that I made using some Pinkfresh Studio dies that I had in my stash. The set that I used is called Just Leaves, and there's a number of different dies in that set, so there are a number of different configurations of leaves and they all go together. Often I'll be asked what dies I use to make some of my die cuts, and I'm often using really old dies. In this case, this Pinkfresh Studio die set is fairly current, so I hope that that would be useful if you liked these die cuts. I'm using two different colors of Distress Oxide. I use Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness, and I ink the edges of these flowers and these leaves. Now I'm using some Villainous Potion, and I'm inking the edges of this circle that I'm going to mat my photo on. The card that I cut it from was from one of the ephemera pieces that was in the kit, and I just used my Creative Memories circle dies and I cut a circle out, and then I also inked the edges of a couple of purple flowers as well. And then for the bluish and tealish elements that I'm going to use, I used Distress Oxide in Peacock Feathers to ink the edges of those items, and again all of those items are from the kit. I'm going to be including these very small frames and the butterflies that you see me inking right now in my layout. I used my Creative Memories circle cutters to cut out a white circle out of some heavyweight cardstock. I have circles cut in 4 different sizes, and I'm going to layer them on top of each other from smallest to largest. Between the white and the teal layers, I'm going to add some foam, and that will give the photo cluster a little bit more dimension. I'm not actually going to cut out a round photo. I'm going to use the smaller frames that I inked earlier, and I'm going to mount those frames around these circles. I attach the foam to the back of the white circle, and then I layer those circles on top of the blue circle, and then I'm going to attach the blue circle to the purple circle. I like the way those colors look layered on top of each other, and I think that one layer of foam gives it just the right amount of dimension. This is the beautiful piece of pattern paper that I'm using for this layout. I love the big circle of flowers. I think that the way that this page was designed just makes it so easy to put together a layout. So much of the work is already done for you. I'm taking those flowers that I inked earlier and I'm tucking them around these layered circles. I'm tucking them between the purple and the teal layer. In the end, you really don't see too much of the purple layer. It's still there. You can see little bits of it coming through, but it's not as clear as it is right now. The teal layer is the one that's most visible by the end of the layout. These are the 3 frames that I'm going to use. I'm going to have them spread across the circles the way you see them here. So that's why I put them in place. I wanted to see where I should put those die cut leaves. Right now it looks like there's a wreath of flowers within a larger wreath of flowers, but by the end of the layout you'll see that it looks a lot different and those 2 circles kind of join together. I wanted to add some sentiments at the bottom of the layout. I chose 3 different sentiments. One says memories, one says enjoy life, one says together. And I'm mounting them on some thick white cardstock because I'm going to be popping them up on some foam. When I'm attaching elements directly to the page, I don't worry about reinforcing them, but when I'm popping them up on some foam, I want to make sure that they're very sturdy. So this is something that I've been doing lately. I've been attaching them to 120-pound cardstock and then popping them up on the foam. And now I'm adding the adhesive foam to the back of each one. And just in case you're not familiar with this adhesive foam, this is available in the kids section of any large craft store. There's foam that comes without any adhesive. I like to buy the foam that has one side that was adhesive. I wish they had foam that had adhesive on both sides, but they haven't come out with that quite yet. The packs of fun foam that I buy, they come in big packs that are all different colors. They usually have some white pieces in there, and I like to save those white pieces for when I pop up something that's very thin. The reason for that is sometimes you could see the foam if you look at the layout on a slight angle, if it's brightly colored. So when I am using a brightly colored foam behind an element, I try to cut the foam a bit smaller than whatever I'm trying to pop up. That way you won't be able to see the brightly colored foam behind whatever it is that is being popped up. I continue to pop up a few more elements. I pop up the butterflies and I add those to a couple of places on the layout. 3 out of the 4 butterflies that I'm using on this layout, they are facing a particular direction. So I place 2 of them around where the photos are going to be. That way they are facing toward the photos. I have 1 up on the top left, and then I also have another butterfly on the bottom facing those sentiments that I just put on the layout. I took a few more die cut leaves onto the layout. And then I realized that although I placed those sentiments on the bottom of the page, I didn't attach them down to the layout. So I grab the ATG gun and I attach them all down. I like to make sure that all of the clusters on the layout connect to each other. I like to do that by using similar embellishments all across the page. So I include a small purple flower and then also some die cut leaves that are the same as the ones that I have around the photo cluster to the cluster with the sentiments, and that way I think that it helps to tie everything together. I also realized I didn't attach the butterfly down yet, and I attached that down to the page because I don't want to lose it, which sometimes happens to me with embellishments. I'm now going to add my photos to the layout. I've already used those small frames and I have chosen 3 small photos to put on the layout. These were all photos that were taken at the Magic Garden in Philadelphia. That is a really cool house where the artist who owned it covered the entire house with mosaics. We really enjoyed going there. We took a whole bunch of pictures. This is definitely not the first layout that I've made with these pictures. Before I add the photos in their frames down to the layout, I thought I had better attach that circle and floral cluster down to the pattern paper in the background. Before attaching the frames together, I used some fun foam on the center photo and I popped that up before attaching it to the other 2 frames. And then because the strip of frames hangs over the sides of the circle, I had to put some fun foam behind the right and the left end of that strip in order to support the frames on either side. And I used 2 layers of the fun foam to make that sit correctly. I also wanted to mention that I used some heavyweight cardstock behind that whole strip of frames. That helped to keep all the frames together in a strip. And once again, I like anything that's popped up on foam to be nice and sturdy, so the cardstock helped with that as well. I attached down 2 more butterflies to the layout. I can't tell you how many times I have placed embellishments on the layout and then forgotten to attach them down and then moved the layout and then had to go looking for what happened to the embellishments that I forgot to attach down. So glad that I got those attached down. I added the title to the layout, which is lovely. I'm also adding some other die cuts to the layout. These are also floral die cuts, but these are small, either berries or buds. I'm not really sure, but I like adding die cuts like these, especially when there's a lot of color. I like adding them in white. I think that it helps you to appreciate all of the beautiful colors and it gives the eye a place to rest. I also like adding touches of white to brighten up the layout a little bit. So I cut out quite a few of these, let's call them buds, and I'm tucking them mainly around the circle. I also add a few of them behind the flower that's on the bottom right next to the sentiments. Again, it ties everything together that way and it makes the flower on the bottom look more complete. I had just a couple of pattern paper scraps and I decided that I would cut just a couple of these die cuts out using the pattern paper. So I added just a couple of those to the layout. They are kind of a light green, and I thought that that was a nice addition to break up the white a little bit. Now I'm using some gel glue to attach all of the die cuts down. I really like to just add the glue to the very base of each of the die cuts. I like the way the die cuts will kind of lift off the page slightly if you don't glue the whole thing down. I like the way that that looks. And occasionally when I've wanted to remove die cuts, it comes in handy to not have the entire die cut glued to the surface of the layout. It makes it much easier to make changes. And I know myself, and I know that I do sometimes change my mind, so that is one way that I keep from destroying the layout when I want to make those changes. Now I'm popping up the top of the title Lovely. The bottom of the title is going to sit on top of the circles, so I wanted to pop up just the top. I drew a few lines to show me where I should put the foam, and I'm using some white foam here because the letters are so thin. I was afraid that no matter how thin I cut the bright purple that I was using for popping up the other elements, you would be able to see it. So I thought the white was a better choice. And I'm trying to cut strips of the foam that are as thin as possible, but are still thick enough to be able to manipulate. I try putting the title in place. It seems to fit in that spot. So now I use some gel glue. I add that to the foam and I put it back where I had it. I didn't attempt to use the ATG adhesive on something that thin. I was afraid that the ATG gun would rip the foam right off of the title or even rip the title. Now I wanted to add some finishing touches to the layout. I'm using some self-adhesive pearls in different sizes. I'm using a medium size to put on either side of the word together on the bottom. Then I use a slightly smaller size to put on either side of the sentiment enjoy life, and then I put two tiny pearls on the bottom right hand side of the memories sentiment. And the reason that I'm giving so much detail about that is I wanted to point out that I try to vary the placement and the size of the pearls on each sentiment just to add a little bit of interest. I add some pearls to each of the butterflies on the page. The butterflies that are facing sideways, I decided to just put one pearl on each of those. I tucked in another die cut on the right hand side of the layout. Now I'm using some scraps that I have on my craft table to cover up the photos, and I'm going to add some white splatters. And to make the white splatters, I use watered down white acrylic paint. When I don't have a mixed media background that I've created myself, I'm not quite as heavy-handed with the white splatters as I am when I have a mixed media background. So I just add a little sprinkling, but I add it all around the layout other than on the photos. I don't mind where it goes. I just think that the white splatters help to bring the whole layout together. Looking at the layout, I thought that that sentiments area looked a little unbalanced, so I added another die cut branch to the left side, and then I added some splatters there just to make sure it would match with everything else. And that was the last touch on the layout, and here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to watch this video, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it was helpful. If you ever have any suggestions for me, please feel free to leave them in the comments box. I love hearing from you what kinds of things you would like to see and what parts of the video are helpful for you. Please take a look in the description box. You'll see a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website. You can check out all of the beautiful kits they have there available each month and perhaps purchase a subscription. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.